I had the pleasure of meeting Margaret Peter in her studio space in Guelph, Ontario. She will be our featured artist for the next 2 weeks at Local Pieces Gallery. I absolutely loved stepping into her studio space and seeing where she does her work. She is a brilliant abstract artist, and she also does work in landscapes, florals, and is known for her print making as well.
As an artist, I started as a painter, and then when I went to university at the University of Guelph, I discovered, I guess, printmaking, and I loved it. And so I took, I think I took a couple more years, just extra labs, so I could use their press until I could afford my own press. So in '78, I bought my large printing press. It was built on the same format as a brand press, and so he built one, and he had his men deliver it and put it together in my studio here in Guelph. So we refinished the studio and prepped for it, and my husband was in real estate at that point, and he had seen some places had mapping drawers, and so we decided that we would chop a hole in the wall to have access and to build these mapping drawers. Because when, as a printmaker, you might print usually smaller editions for me, 20, 25. I did print my fruits and vegetables editions of 60 because I knew they were going to be a selling edition, and they were great. So normally, I mean, I still have some of my kittens are here, are all organized, and I know what numbers are left that I can still sell. And then I just will map them when I need one. Carnegie Gallery in Dundas sells a lot of my work for me for etchings. I do fossils, love fossils, and cats. Those are my two main interests in etchings. I was going through these the other day. I found this edition, and I thought, oh, this was so much work because this collagraph has 1, 2, 3, 4 plates. Each plate was was inked with several colors, and then it was assembled on my printing press bed like a puzzle. And then my paper was soaked, blotted, and put on top and run through. So it was quite a printing process.
What inspires your artwork?
For landscape, it's just going for a drive and thinking, oh, yeah, I'll just take a picture of that. That would be great. That's a great sky. I would, certainly change the foreground or take the barn out of there or do different things to it. But often it's just getting out into nature. As far as abstracts are concerned, I mean, you're influenced in so many ways, even looking at textural things, and you'll see small shapes in it, and then you decide to blow it up and do a larger abstract of it, or you play around and accidents happen, and then you think, oh yeah, and if I added another color to that, or another shape to that, or another size format, it would be so much more exciting. So your artist brain sort of takes over, and you just play with direction.
I love that. So does one piece inspire the next?
Often you work in a series. It really does, until you sort of get to, you've maybe done 5 or 6, and then you start feeling you're repeating yourself. And this is why, I could not do landscapes for 40 years. Otherwise, I would just be repeating myself, and that's just kills me. So that's why you do other things. So same with a series, you do a number, and when you feel you've exhausted the palette or exhausted what you want to do with that palette, then you stop, take a break, do something else, and then decide on another palette you might try.
Mm-hmm.
Like this palette is so much fun. It might not be a real saleable palette, but I did a few things and I thought, oh, I like that. It's happy.
How do you start your paintings?
I usually do the sky first, and I stain the canvas with quinacridone gold or sometimes a crimson. But usually when you look at my canvases, you will see it has a warm glow behind everything. You let that dry, of course, and then with the landscapes, I'm sort of known for my big skies, so I block off my canvas into a certain proportion and work on developing depth with color and clouds, and and then let it dry, and then you go back into it and you puff up your clouds, add more drier fluid acrylic, and then I work onto my landscape too. So I try to incorporate the we can't move. I try to incorporate the foreground of the landscape with the sky by using a soft sort of brush water cross, and then color will seep up, so it's not a hard edge ever with the trees, and sometimes then the trees will become like a tree. And then I work on, again, building up, depending on what landscape I'm creating, whether it's got a cow in it or a sheep in it or simply beautiful rolling hills, which I love. I'm basically from Essex County, very flat landscape. So this is why I seem to love flatter landscapes and big skies. And out west, of course, is wonderful too. If I'm doing an abstract, I tend to use, I've taught many courses with abstraction. My favorite one is to use a cruciform background. So I will usually a dark color, not always black, but quite often, and I will do some sort of a cruciform basis. It doesn't have to be like this, but it can be broken up, and it has different shapes, different widths. And then once that's dry, you come in with your other colors that you decided what your palette's going to be before you start usually. And then you start blocking in bigger shapes of color. Use your rollers, use your knives, use your mark making towards the end so that you have a lot of texture that's developed. Like this one, you can see there is, if you can see here, so you can really see there's the cruciform. Okay, so it's jogged over, but it's also painted over so that it's not always in your face. The red one in the other room is a really good example too. This has a very strong top to my cruciform, but you can see it still comes down, and sometimes I will repeat too, just so that the color sort of brings your eye across. So once that's in, then I start blocking in other areas of color, which are great, and you start using your tools to bring some of that color, which is still very wet, always wet, to move into the other area. And when you're happy with what you've done so far and you want to start approaching with drier color, then you can again use brush or tools or rollers to start doing mark making. So these things, of course, are all very visible as add-ons for the mark making. I love big circles, depending on the size of the canvas. I have different size circles, and I find either use color for your center of interest, or you can always add a mark making image to bring your eye there. So I've repeated, you can see I've got repeated circles here and there. So it's not an isolated thing, but that's part of being an abstract painter. Some people do not believe in a center of interest for abstraction, but I kind of like one. It gives me some sense of being able to relate to the canvas better.
How do you choose your colors?
Well, it's interesting because I've worked through a few different palettes. Um, you look on your color wheel and you see what works together. Or you might just be inspired by something you've seen elsewhere, or a TV ad even sometimes will inspire me. Oh, I like those colors together, and then I will try. I will fiddle around with some small pieces first to see if it works, and I often do small 7x10s, and then I have to frame them, of course.
How long have you been an artist?
Well, I graduated from university in '74, and even before I graduated, I was producing, of course, going through all the courses you would produce and you would make things wonderful. So I would say I've been an artist in '74 because I was always a very goal-oriented person, and was always seeking out galleries and so on. So
It was such a pleasure to speak with Marg Peter in her home studio. We are excited at Local Pieces Gallery to invite her for her 2-week featured artist spotlight, and hope that you can make it in to see her work.